Hello.
Hi, Dr. Lane.
Oh, good. Okay, I got it to work. I was getting a little worried there. How you doing?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Good, doing good.
Jennifer.
Okay, we are live. Ella, do you want to go ahead and get started?
Indeed, thank you. Good evening, everyone. We're so happy to have you join us this evening for a very wonderful evening. I'd like to first just mention a few things about AAUW and it as an organization. It's an organization that has been in place since 1881, and it prides itself as going into the future until its mission is accomplished. And of course, that mission is one of gender equity for girls and women. As we pursue the goal of equity, we also take into consideration issues of nonpartisanship, fact-based issues, using integrity, inclusion, and intersectionality as components that we work with. We do our work from a national organization, state organizations throughout the country, and branches in various cities and regions. On a national level, we have many pertinent programs, and we support a legal advocacy fund and fellowships and grants. On a local level, the Carbondale branch offers a monthly program, September through May each year, on Tuesdays usually. We provide 4 scholarships a year to women in undergraduate, graduate, or graduate school. We collaborate with other organizations to carry out our program of attaining equity. And we feel we have a program that is growing and is one that we're proud of. Cindy Bies, will speak to us tonight on looking at the works of Ruth Bader Ginsburg in memoriam, And she will follow that with an AAUW position paper that presents a statement on the confirmation of Amy Coney Barrett. So I present Cindy Buys at this point.
Thank you, Ella, and thank you for that welcome. Of course, I'm sure many of you know that we lost Ruth Bader Ginsburg on September 18th, 2020, less than 1 month ago today. And she was both a personal icon for me and someone that many, many people looked up to across the political spectrum. Ella mentioned a moment ago that one of AAUW's primary purposes is to achieve gender equity. And Justice Ginsburg did more in her lifetime than any other justice to achieve gender equity. She was an attorney for many years before going on the bench. She worked for the ACLU, and she devoted her career to gender equity for both men and women. She fought for laws that made it fair in terms of benefits for the military spouses, for Social Security benefits, for jury service, for the administration of estates, and so many, many other things. And she was known for her sharp intelligence, her kind spirit, and her incredible work ethic. And we will continue to miss her deeply. In light of her passing, of course, I'm sure everyone also knows that there are currently confirmation hearings going forward for Amy Coney Barrett, who may be our next Supreme Court Justice. As Ella stated, the AAUW has prepared a formal statement. It is done by the CEO of AAUW, Kimberly Churches, and I've been asked to read that statement this evening. Kimberly Churches states, "When the time is right, it is AAUW's fervent hope that Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg will be replaced with a justice who, like her, can be an independent voice and fierce and fair-minded advocate for American women and their families. The time is not right, and Amy Coney Barrett is not that person. With so much at stake, it is more essential than ever that the nominee get a comprehensive and thorough vetting. Given that the election is already underway, with hundreds of thousands of ballots already cast, there is insufficient time to hold the kind of thoughtful and deliberative hearings that the nominee and the American people deserve. As such, AAUW stands staunchly against filling this court vacancy until after the next president is inaugurated in January. In addition to the issues we see with the rushed process, we are also adamantly opposed to the selection of Judge Barrett to fulfill Justice Ginsburg's seat. While we agree it is essential to choose a woman for this powerful and distinguished role, women are not interchangeable. We need a justice who is committed to safeguarding our rights and advocating for AAUW's priorities with a track record to prove it. Judge Barrett is not the right person for this lifetime appointment. She is on the wrong side of many of the issues that are central to AAUW's mission of advancing gender equality. Her record of curtailing reproductive freedoms and access to health care, undermining Title IX by making it more difficult for female students to battle sex discrimination in schools, and weakening protections for workers does not bode well in ensuring that we have the advocate we need on the highest court in the land. Thank you.
At this point, I am pleased to introduce Dr. Austin A. Lane and to present him as our speaker tonight. Dr. Lane was approved May 29th, 2020 by the Southern Illinois University Board of Trustees following a recommendation by SIU System President, Dr. Dan Mahoney. Dr. Lane became Chancellor of SIU Carbondale on July 1. He is a native of New Jersey, and he graduated from Hackensack High School, then attended Odessa Junior College in West Texas on a basketball scholarship. He holds a BA in psychology from Langston University, an MA in human relations from the University of Oklahoma, and the EDD in higher education administration from the University of Alabama. Dr. Lane's career in higher education is marked by a variety of successive leadership roles and professional achievements. A 25-year higher education administrator and faculty member, he has served as president of Texas Southern University, executive vice chancellor of academic and student affairs at Lone Star College System, as president of Lone Star College, Montgomery, as vice president for student affairs at Tyler Junior College, and as dean of students at the University of Texas at Arlington. Dr. Lane has served on a number of diverse boards, including Texas Children's Hospital, Montgomery County Women's Center, Rotary Club of the Woodlands, and Education for Tomorrow Alliance. Dr. Lane has been recognized among the 2017 top minority professional leaders in Greater Houston as recipient of the 2015 Drum Major Award, the 2014 Interfaith of the Woodlands Hometown Hero honoree, and as 2012 Pacesetter of the Year for the National Council for Marketing and Public Relations. He is married to Lauren Lane and has 3 children, Lauren, Chase, and Lance. Southern Illinois University, the Southern Illinois region, and AAUW are among those proud to receive Dr. Lane this evening. Dr. Lane.
Thank you so much, Ella. It's good to see you again, and appreciate all of the guidance that you have given me. You serve on a lot of committees in this community. So I tell you, you are the busiest person in Carbondale, probably next to Dr. Flowers there, because she's everywhere. And I see her on the call tonight. I'd be remiss if I didn't say thank you to Dr. Vise. Cindy did a great job there just now. It's good to see you, and thank you for all you do at SIU and all the great work that you've been doing in our law school. It's good. I can't see all the participants, but it looks like we have a large number of participants this evening, which is very refreshing. I have been here now about 97 days, but who's counting? It feels like I've been here a lot longer than a couple of months, and I will tell you that I have met more people in the Carbondale or the Southern Illinois region who have welcomed me with open arms. And I really appreciate that. And again, thank you for tuning in this evening. I was excited to hear about the opportunity to talk with you tonight for a couple of reasons, and I'll talk about them in just a moment. But just so you know who I am, and I hate those bios because they're kind of dry and they take too long to read, and they don't really tell you who a person really is. But I am from Hackensack, New Jersey, as you heard, but I grew up with my mother and my grandmother. Those were the 2 biggest influence folks in my life. My mother worked very hard, not having an opportunity to go to college, as well as my grandmother, but they knew the value of it, and they put all of their time and their effort in me. and they really encouraged me to do the best that I could in going forward. My grandmother was like the disciplinarian in the house, and she made sure that we did everything that we were supposed to do. So I have a strong appreciation because I have grown up with strong women my entire life. And then enters my wife, who's another very strong woman. And, we just bought a home here in Carbondale, and somebody the other day had the nerve to say, well, how's the house coming along? I said, why are you asking me? It's got nothing to do with me. It's everything to do with my wife. I don't pick out anything. I have no say in any of that. So you can tell who runs our household. It's definitely my wife, Lauren. I have a daughter named Lauren, who is a senior at University of Houston, son named Chase, who's a freshman at Texas A&M University, and then a 14-year-old, as you heard, named Lance, who is trying to figure out high school and everything else. One of the things that I think is extremely important to talk tonight, and again, I appreciate the AAUW for inviting me to speak this evening. My career started in a program in Texas called the WIN-R program. And the WIN-R program stood for Women in New Roles, WIN/R, Women in New Roles. And my job was to make sure that women who were deciding to come back to higher education, meaning they would start it off and then life happened, and they started to work, but they wanted to come back and receive their degree. And my job was to teach 2 courses that these ladies had to do well in. They had to come in from 6 o'clock at night until 10 o'clock at night. So you talk about 2 classes back to back. And these women were absolutely fantastic. When you talk about the term we use in higher ed called grit, G-R-I-T, grit. Well, they had grit, just like my mother and my grandmother. They were determined to finish what they started. And my job was to make sure that they had every resource and every opportunity to get there. So that shaped me early on as a young professional, interacting with a scope of women that were 19 years old all the way up to 78 years old. So that was the age range of the women that actually were in my course. And I was so excited to be with them every time that our course met, because even though I was the instructor, they taught me more about life than anything, just almost close to what my mother and my grandmother taught me. And so what I found is that as I moved up in my career, I always wanted to make sure that, because I noticed some of the inequity, I noticed some of the challenges, I noticed some of the things that just weren't fair in higher education, especially as it related to pay, as it related to positions within higher education. I realized that not only myself as a minority had some challenges in terms of how I navigated through institutions, but that the minority, being the women in our organizations, also had a very challenging time to be able to move up. So I committed, when I finally became an administrator, I committed to making sure that as long as I was in a position that could have some influence, that I would always ensure that on my executive cabinets, that they would be diverse and that they would include women, and not just 1 or 2, but several, because I felt it was a good obligation to make sure that we had a good representation of what we needed to have going forward to move our institution forward. So I've always made a point on my administrative teams to actively recruit women and actively give women opportunities to succeed. And because their future, when I thought about my future, I said, well, their future is no different. Give you some examples of doing that. when I was at my last institution, or actually the last two institutions, I created leadership programs. And the leadership programs are very important because I noticed that the women who were working with me, not for me, but with me, were women that they just needed an opportunity to get the experience. And once they got that experience within the organization through cross-training or through other avenues or through education, many of the women on my staff went on to receive their master's degrees, their doctorates, and I would promote them from within. But I gave them those experiences because I knew that they had the potential to do great things. And so it was very important that as we looked at our leadership structure, that the women were able to have those roles and move forward. Many of the women that I am still connected to work all across this country. So I really prided myself in making sure that not only did they work with me at my institution, but when they left and went other places, they had great opportunities. I have women out that work with me that are now university presidents and or chancellors, vice presidents, deans, you name it. And I stay in touch with them all the time because, again, they helped shape my career. They helped do some things. I was not the smartest one on my team, and so I had to have some other folks to really help me out. So I think as you look at the title of this particular event tonight, and when you think about the future, when you think about the equity or lack thereof, when you think about whether it's as it relates to pay, as it relates to position, we have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of work to do in higher education specifically, and then I'm sure that spans out to corporate America. But even in our university structures, we have to be very careful that when we look at the pay that we give men, that pay is equal to pay for women, and that there's no excuse for it not to be. In my last institution, I launched what I called a salary survey. And I noticed was my fear is that we had women in leadership positions that were underpaid and did not have the ability to be promoted and moved up. I'm pleased to report before I left, we adjusted those pay scales. We made sure that women had opportunities to be in positions or to be eligible for positions that would require obviously them to lead large chunks of the university and to give them those opportunities so there wouldn't be any inequity involved in that. So I'm committed here at SIUC with doing the same thing. I think that our institution is just an amazing place, an amazing opportunity, not only for women, but people of color, from all walks of life, from different backgrounds. And so my goal will be to continue on that journey. And so, again, I am just pleased to be with each of you this evening. If I had to leave you with a final thought as we go forward at the university, we're trying to move things forward. We will need all of your support in this community to make sure that we are able to create a pipeline for our young female students in our elementary schools. And that's where I need your help. We have to make sure, whether it's in STEM programs or like Cindy in law, all of these areas that may be male dominated, it is up to you and it's up to me to expose our young, I have a daughter, obviously, but to expose our young ladies early with the opportunities and make sure they understand that they can do the same things that are out there. So I want to make sure that you have every ounce of energy in you to help me recruit these young ladies. Final piece, we have inked a deal with Girls Inc. out of St. Louis. Girls Inc. is going to be one of our pipelines, in addition to many more here locally and outside of our region, where we are going to begin to bring, when COVID hopefully moves out of our our way of life here. I hope that is the case soon. But our goal is to make sure we add those pipeline programs, those summer bridge programs to get those young ladies connected on campus and with our faculty, with our staff, to expose them to some of these careers and these degrees that we offer at the university. So with your help, with AAUW, if you would help me in that effort to do an enhanced job of making sure that we create that bridge for our young ladies in this community and outside of this community to get them to SIU, would really appreciate that. So on that note, thank you this evening for giving me the opportunity to speak. I look forward to seeing all of you very soon. And I wasn't sure how much time I had there, Ella, but I'd be glad to answer any questions or make additional comments too. I didn't want you to give me the hook. So hopefully I didn't go too long. So thank you again.
You certainly did not go too long. Thank you, Dr. Lane, for sharing of your personal experiences as well as motivating us regarding our quest for equity. And so sounds like you were the right person for tonight, for sure. At this point, we'll ask I guess she would be our taskmaster, the person you mentioned before, Dr. Linda Flowers, to come forth with questions that she has gleaned from the chat box or the Q&A. So Dr. Flowers.
Yes, and I just want to remind everyone before we get started with the questions that if you have a question for the Chancellor, please put it in the chat box or the Q&A box. So our first question, Dr. Lane, have you had the opportunity to learn about gender issues at SIU? And if so, can you share what you've seen so far?
Great question. Many of you probably know or don't know, one of the things that I talked about in my interview is that I would do a listening and learning tour. And that, for me, was going to give me the opportunity to find out what the culture of SIU, what it actually is. And so on that listening and learning tour, which is happening as we speak, kicked off a couple of weeks ago, and it's me basically meeting with all faculty, staff, students, alums, or community members about two things, about what they love about SIU and things that they think we need to do to enhance SIU. So as you can imagine, I'm hearing the good, the bad, and the ugly. So a lot of what I didn't hear in my interview, I heard a lot of the good in the interview, but what I'm hearing now is some good, some bad, and some ugly. And that's what I want to hear. Because I did not want to assume, stepping in as an outsider, that everything was working according to plan. I know that after doing this for a while, that's never the case, and that there's always some room for improvement. And the only way you're going to get the improvement is through active feedback and constructive criticism and or kudos. And what I'm finding is that, we have some things that we need to focus on that we're not doing well at, especially as it relates to gender equity, as it relates to opportunities, as I mentioned earlier. We have some work to do. We had a report that went to the board, I guess it was about 2 weeks ago. It was an underrepresented report. And that report highlights the progress or lack thereof that we're making as it relates to minorities, as it relates to our hires, as it relates to women. And it's not where we want it to be. So we have some real work to do. We just launched a diversity task force. Dr. Flowers actually is I think, part of that task force that we have here. Thank you for serving. But that task force focuses on equity and inclusion. And as you can imagine, those are areas, as I mentioned, that we've got some work to do. So I've been able to, in 90 some odd days, get a very small snapshot of what's happening out there as it relates to gender equity. But I will tell you, between now and March, which is the end of that particular listening and learning tour, I will have met with close to probably 60 some odd groups. Again, faculty, staff, students, alum, community members. I'm meeting with everybody that wants to talk. And so I'll come back in March and April. We'll highlight our top 5 priorities for the university. And then we'll lay that foundation for our goals and our objectives and how we're going to assess those things within our strategic plan, which is going to have a 10-year outlook on it. So we've got some work to do there, but that is definitely going to be one that stays with us so we can closely monitor the progress we need to make in those areas.
Thank you. Our next question. When you talk about creating opportunities for women, Dr. Lane, do you mean cisgender women or trans women as well? Have you helped trans women? If you have not, how will you in the future?
Yeah, I'm a firm believer on however you identify, whether it's male, female, transgender, however you identify. For me, I'm going to be there to assist. I have several of my students that I teach in my higher education course, and I have several, whether it's transgender or, I have several individuals that I've been able to mentor and still continue to mentor today. The beauty of higher education is that I have the luxury of interacting with so many people, again, regardless of their race, their sexuality. I've been able to mentor individuals that really want to move forward in their academic career or administrative career. Here at SIU, I think what's so unique, which is probably a little different from Texas, and in which I'm really fascinated here on our campus. And I just was celebrating Vern, who is one of our counselors that's here, LGBTQ area. And we just won a Campus Pride Award, which is a very award that not everyone wins. And we do that because of the inclusive environment that we have with our dedication or continued dedication to make sure that people of all walks of life, backgrounds are treated fairly and treated with respect. And that's the culture that I want to create or to continue to foster at SIU. And I think that will go a long way in the structure that we're trying to provide. And most importantly, the experiences that we're trying to give our students who are coming in. We want them to leave with being a very diverse student.
Okay, our next question. Oops. We have someone who has a question, but she can't figure out how to get it in the chat. So if you look at the bottom of your screen, along the bottom, you'll see the mute, start video, participants. If you would click on the one that says chat there, and then that will open up a window and you should be able to type in there. Otherwise, Jennifer, can you unmute someone?
Yes. Do we have someone in mind?
Yes, Martha.
Okay, Martha is unmuted, so she can go
Okay.
ahead and talk.
So, yes, what can I do now? Write a question? Or ask a question?
Just go ahead and ask, yeah.
Can I just ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Or, Okay, Dr. Lane, in your listening tour, were you made aware at all of, was there any information about programs, previous programs supporting women at SIUC, which are no longer in existence, like University Women's Professional Advancement, which is gone, which had mentoring programs, professional mentoring programs, a number of other programs as well, research development and so forth, or women's studies, which may still be in existence, but which is hanging by a thread. Were you aware of those, or did anyone talk to you about them?
Yeah, ironically, Martha, thank you for that question. You must have been sitting in on our faculty senate meeting at 1 o'clock today. So one of our faculty members by the name of Jacob, and Cindy always, his last name, Jacob would kill me if I didn't get it right. Hypernick or Jacob H. Let's call him Jacob H. Jacob asked the very same question today, and he said, "Hey, whatever happened to the program you just mentioned, the University Women's Program?" And I got a lot of history about it today. And my response was, why don't we have it anymore? Because it sounds like it was a very good program. And so as I listen and learn, this is the beauty of this tour, is that there may be an opportunity to revive programs that were highly successful. And really speak to everything that I just talked about tonight, with making sure that those leadership opportunities, those equity issues are addressed, and that it comes from a body or a constituency group like that. And so I welcome the opportunity, Martha, if there's a way to get even more information. I think what you're alluding to, what I found, is that most of the programs that seem to be pretty effective, programs for women, programs for minority students, you name it, for some reason over the last several years, the cuts or the reduction in budget in other areas, unfortunately, I think it got to some of those programs that we're talking about, or what we're finding is that we had great folks who used to work at the university, and when they left, right, Ella? When they left, they took all that knowledge with them, and for some reason we didn't refill or backfill those positions. And so without the succession planning and without the high priority or thought behind what we should keep, you had a lot of those programs fall by the wayside. So give you one example of one of those programs was the Center for Academic Success, which we're bringing back this summer. Dr. Seymour Bryson used to run it, and it was the Future Scholars Program. And you probably remember that, Martha, but it went away for a while. It was a very effective program that attracted students from rural areas, from urban areas, Black, white, male, female, in that program. We're bringing it back this summer. And we're going to have students come again in the summer and really run it almost very similar to how it was years ago when it was here. So just an example, and I think I think we need a program like that. That would be a program that I would call Lead SIU, where I would meet personally with a cohort of women who are thinking about their next leadership move or their development inside the institution. I think we miss on some really good people, and they end up leaving and either retire or they go to another university and make it great. So we've got to find a way to protect our talent here, and we've got to find a way to make sure that we put people on leadership tracks. I was fortunate. I started on a leadership track very early because I had great mentors. That's the only reason why. It wasn't because I was the smartest person in the world, or I wasn't, but I had great mentors who took a vested interest in me and showed me how this worked. And so I think we have to do the same thing here at the institution to grow some of our own. And I think we can start with programs like you just described. So sorry for the long answer, but I was excited because we just talked about that earlier today.
Okay, then here's a question I'd be interested in as a board member at Carbondale Community High School. Will your son play basketball for Carbondale Senior?
I tell you what, my daughter was in the books, and she did a little bit of soccer, and But you know, when it got a little hot outside, she said, "Dad, that's it. No more soccer. I don't want to run around sweating and doing that." So then my son comes along, my middle son, and I don't know. I got to brag a little bit, but they played the University of Florida. He plays for Texas A&M, and Texas A&M played Florida this weekend. He scored his first touchdown, and had a really good game, and they won in a very thrilling way. It was a last-minute kick. So he's very athletic and always has been. Then my 14-year-old could care less about picking up a basketball or football. And he actually wants to be a sports announcer. So maybe if the high school has a really good communications program, that'd be something he'd probably be more interested in. So that, so Lyndon, to answer your question, you won't be, if he's playing basketball, that means Carbondale must have a terrible team. And because he's not the one to play basketball. He can talk and he knows all the stats, but he's not going to be out there playing. So thanks for that, though.
Okay, that actually was not my question.
Oh, yeah. What was the question?
That was someone else's question.
Oh, it was somebody else. Well, whoever that was, thank you for the question.
But Dr. Lacey, there are no more questions in the chat or the Q&A.
I think you're muted too, Dr. Lacey. Yes, you may be muted. And I'd love to give some updates too, if I could, but you tell me.
Updates on what?
Just a few university updates.
Oh, okay. Well, again, we thank you for your very engaging responses to the questions, as well as to your presentation. And so thank you.
Yeah.
And we thank our audience for joining in on the question session and providing some very good questions, especially here at this second program, our second program of the year. And at this point, we'll ask Dr. Martha Ellert, as mentioned, a retired SIU professor for SIU School of Medicine, to share a few words about upcoming programs. Martha? Okay.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you, Ella. Yes, I do have a few words to say about the upcoming programs. Point of personal privilege. First, I'd like to say to Dr. Lane, thank you for your response. And I did direct the program, University Women's Professional Advancement, for the 8 years before I retired in the year 2000. So that's how long, that's how far back it goes. And it didn't go away when I left. That happened gradually. So I would be glad to meet with you at some point and talk about it. So,
I'm going to hold you to that. So Ella and Cindy, help me connect, because we love to hear about that program. Love to revive it too.
It is my, I'd be glad to talk about it. But what I'm supposed to be talking about is the upcoming programs. We're happy to have you with us tonight for our second program. We invite you to join us for our future programs. We usually meet on the second Tuesday of each month, and our programs start at 7. The remaining programs in 2020 will be virtual programs on Zoom, and they will be hosted by the Carbondale Public Library, and we're very grateful for that. Tuesday, November 10th, 7 o'clock, Catherine Field of Carbondale Racial Justice Coalition will be speaking on how Black Lives matters, racial justice and police reform. And she will be addressing the question of what recent national events in our shared racial history might mean for us in Southern Illinois. On Tuesday, well, I think we just got cut off.
We're still with you.
No,
Are we still?
Yeah, we're still with you.
I'm looking. Okay. Okay, good. On Tuesday, December 8th at 7 o'clock, we will have Dr. Glenn Pichard, who doesn't really need an introduction. He's a former Illinois State Senator, U.S. Congressman, and SIU President. He will be speaking on leadership from within. Leadership from Within is a program that requires the leader to take the inward journey towards self-awareness, enabling the leader to value and respect the life of each individual he or she seeks to lead. We do hope that you can join us for one of these programs or both of them and encourage others to attend as well. Back to you, Ella.
Okay, thank you, Martha. At this point, we're about to say good night. And Betsy,
Dr. Lacey, Dr. Lane had a few updates he wanted to give about SIU. Would that be okay? Someone
that
was
would-
asking about it.
that would indeed be wonderful.
Okay.
Perfect. Well, thank you. And I will keep this brief, but I think it's something that our entire community, if you can help me spread the word, the biggest game changer that I think, if you could help me spread this, will be the SIUC commitment. SIUC commitment, we announced that a couple of weeks ago. That commitment basically means that students that live in family households that have household combined incomes of $63,000 and below, these students essentially will have an opportunity to come to SIUC almost for nothing as it relates to tuition and fees. What happens is those students typically are eligible for federal and state grants. Those federal and state grants will be applied first to their tuition and fees, which leaves a very small out-of-pocket cost of about $400 some odd that we will cover. So that is, if you hear anything about the SIUC commitment, please tell those seniors that are out there, or your kids, granddaughter, grandson, son, daughter, you name it, that's a great opportunity. We're also having the SIUC transfer commitment. We're going to use that same $63,000 household income for students that may be starting at Logan or Shawnee or Kaskaskia or any of our Wren Lake, any of our community colleges that are in the area. That's going to be very important to make sure they know that. Test optional, no SAT, no ACT. We are looking at the academic GPA. We know that the GPA is a better predictor of success. And so we're looking at students in that particular area that are interested in SIU, have a 2.75 or above. We're also tying our merit-based scholarships to our grading scale of 4.0 all the way down to 2.75. So it's going to be very critical. We will host some community Zooms this fall, and that will be me, just like we're doing now, on Zoom with any community member that wants to be a part of it, to tell you about the opportunities I'm explaining tonight, because we want to make sure we get the message across that SIUC is going to start its recruiting efforts here in Southern Illinois first. I mean, we are going to do a much better job recruiting our students here at home to try and keep them home. We really feel like we have a great institution, great programs to offer, and there's no reason to leave home. And we're going to make it a little harder on parents by putting out some incentives to keep their son or daughter here. So those are just a few items I wanted to talk about as it relates to enrollment. We ended the fall with we're not done with the fall, but as far as enrollment, our number was at 11,366. We're hoping to increase that by this time next fall to about 12,000 students. So that's an extra 600 some odd students that we're going to hopefully add to our institution. We've been talking with all of the local superintendents and the high school principals and the counselors about our commitment to trying to recruit their students, our students eventually. We've also been talking to the community colleges. So if you have some community college students that are at community colleges, tell them to be on the lookout for our 3+1 program, which basically is students that can't always come to us, can stay where they are at their community college campus in the third year and do it via distance learning, and also in the fourth year. And there's also going to be an incentive there where they're paying the tuition of the community college in the third year and the other half to us. So that's a big break in that regard. So those are just a few areas. If you're a fan or an athletic fan, we have our first football game October 30th. It's backed up. It was the 23rd. They had to change it. It's against Southeast Missouri State. And so that will be a home game. And so we're hoping to see some folks there. We're still having to deal with the size capacity in terms of what we can have in the stadium. And in the spring, as you know, we have our full football season with conference games only, in addition to basketball and a lot of the other sports. So we're excited about that. So we have a question here over here. Will that be televised? Cindy, I think so, on an ESPNU or ESPN3, because we're going to be the only game in town, I think, that Friday night nationally. So I think we're going to get some television exposure for the Salukis, which would be a great thing. So looking forward to that. We continue with COVID testing. It's free testing thanks to SIH and Jackson County Health Department. Free testing for our faculty, staff, and our students. That's a big partnership for us. We appreciate that partnership. Our cases, knock on wood, have been low. And you can go to our website and see exactly what cases, we report our cases every Wednesday. It's on a dashboard. We've been very fortunate. Our students have been complying with wearing their masks. Our faculty have been very helpful with that. So we're not out of the water yet. We still have a couple of weeks to go, but we want to be we want to be safe, and our community is doing a really good job in that respect. So on that note, thank you very much, and I appreciate the opportunity to be with you this evening.
Thank you again, Dr. Lane. Thank you very much. That's some precious news about the updates and everything. And I would like to just comment, I believe it was Julian Pay who suggested that maybe individuals might be willing to support the balance for the Saluki commitment and for them to have nearly free tuition and fees. But I want to mention that, you know, we have very small organizations around here, quite a number of them, but it just might be that there could be some organizational commitments that would go on as well. And I also know that one of our members, Olga Widener, has been promoting some of that for quite some time. So she's a retired SIU faculty person as well. But anyway, at this point, we're about to say good night and best wishes to the panelists and to our most attentive audience tonight. And in the interest of full disclosure, I will reveal that I am coming to you from the 3rd floor of Memorial Hospital. So if you heard lots of sounds coming out one place or another, yep, they were all attending to me. People came in with a meal and needed to ask me things. But anyway, I'm doing fine. I expect to be home tomorrow. So again, thanks.
Wow.
Thanks for all that all of you do to make our world a better place. And starting right here in what seems sometimes a slightly obscure place, Southern Illinois. If we can keep working here as others do, we will make the world a better place. So thank you all so much and good night.
Dr.
I'll sleep
Lacey,
here tonight.
well, wow. I had no idea you were there. Well, I wish you the best.
I didn't know what all you saw hanging.
I had no idea. I wish you
Okay.
well. You get well soon.
Oh, yes.
Wow.
Okay.
You are
All right.
hardworking.
Yes. Thank you, Jennifer and everybody. Okay,
No problem.
bye-bye.